we're meant to carry life and deliver it and bring it into this world. And if that's true, then every single thing that comes along with it is by design. And if you can work with it as opposed to against it, it's a whole different experience. So yes, it's painful and you might feel like you're tearing apart, but it's in this deeply beautiful, so close to death, emerges this like new life on the outside and within yourself as a mom, that when you can look at it that way, when you come down to like the crux of it is like God made us to carry life and then bring it into the world. And if you can lean into that, it's like, it just shifts everything about the experience.
Welcome to Birth from Within, where inner wisdom meets grounded preparation. We're here to share raw, real birth stories and offer the insight and tools you need to move through the system with courage, clarity, and authority. You are made for this. Your body knows what to do. This podcast is the heart work of a nurse and a perinatal chiropractor, women who have walked our own birth journeys, and now we walk beside you. In each episode, we share practical tools, grounded wisdom, and deep reverence for your body's design. Let's return to the root, because birth doesn't start in a delivery room, birth starts from within. Welcome back today to Birth from Within. We're going to dive into the why. We've talked to a lot of different young moms, new moms, second, third time moms going into their birthing experience saying, I either want to redeem how my first birth was, or I want to have a natural labor. That's really appealing to me. We'll see how it goes. And it kind of ends there. If your plan is to see how it goes, you probably are not going to have the birth you're desiring because it's really hard. And so
it's painful.
A lot of times if you have the option for an out of the pain, you're going to take it. What was it in your preparation and your birth, the why, that was strong enough to hold on to, that you were unwavering even when it got really tough?
My first one was induced, but I still fought with the doctor saying, I don't want a C-section. So I think that was my biggest thing in my head. I don't want to be a C-section. I don't want a big surgery. You know, it's scary for me already. So I think the first time it was just that, like, I don't want to be a C-section. Yeah. I know I didn't have a lot of preparation. I know I told you guys that I had, I Googled like how to push, how to breathe through the contraction. Because it was induced, so at 6 a.m. I had to be there. So while I was waiting outside, I was like, oh my God.
Yes. Now that I think about it, yeah.
Yes.
What am I supposed to do?
But I mean, it did save me. I thought about relax, breathe in, breathe out. And when I didn't do that, oof, the pain was horrible.
And you're talking induction, so with Pitocin as well?
Cytotec, Pitocin, they broke my water.
God.
And in all of these interventions were because the doctor was like, oh, you are not dilating. Oh, you're not. And I was like, I don't care what else are you going to do, but I'm not going to do C-section, because he kept pushing C-section. Thankfully, you know, after my water broke, contraction picked up and I had a vaginal birth. But yeah, it was like all the interventions.
And how did you not get an epidural feeling all that, especially with Pitocin contractions? Like,
I'm a very strong woman. It felt like my body was ripping apart, you know, like the pain was so intense. I'm strong. We are stronger than what we think we are.
Do you feel like you wanted to prove that to yourself, or it was just more like, I'm strong and there was just never another option?
I was really scared about a surgery.
You were afraid an epidural would lead to a C-section. If you got the epidural, like it would increase your chances?
You know what? Epidural was never in my mind. It was more the fear of, oh, we have to get you in emergency C-section. I don't even remember if they asked me for an epidural. It was never in my mind either.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah. I was very young too. Yeah. I've always loved birth.
Yeah.
So I had been already previously in couple births, so I knew that there was going to be pain. I didn't know how much of it, right? Until you have to feel it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was like, no, I was set that... Wow. No surgery for me.
It's incredible.
Yeah. I had a surgery in my mouth. So the recovery was horrible. And from that, maybe that was scaring me into, oh, I don't want to be under anesthesia and feeling all that weird. And yeah, it was just scary for me. And if we are created for this, right? Like, why not?
Yeah. Like, yeah. And it sounds like you were so set in that stance, I'm not getting a C-section. And So you were trying to do everything you could to avoid it. And I think that's the biggest key probably is that you decided.
Yeah.
It was a decision.
Yeah.
You weren't like wishy-washy on it. Like, I guess if I need to, I'll get a C-section.
Yeah, no.
Ultimately.
And I think that's the part that saved me. I was, once my water broke, contraction were like the worst, but the baby was, already coming. Yeah, I was progressing. Mm-hmm. If in another case I wouldn't progress, or the baby, baby heart D cells or stuff, then it's straight C-section. So I think I was lucky enough to, have that inducement very young, first time, because sometimes first time mom also that doesn't work out, getting induced.
And then after that experience where you did avoid a C-section, how did that why translate to, you ended up with 2 home births, so it feels like you built a lot on your why.
So the second one was in a hospital, but it was now with a group of midwife. It was midwife and OBs. So at least I was like, at least I'm gonna get the water birth, because that's when I started learning that there was the water birth. Yeah. And how the warm water is soothing or makes the pain better. And I was already in chiropractic school, so I knew about don't touch the baby's head. And that's why I went into midwife, because they are more pro natural birth.
Pro less intervention.
Exactly. So that's the first thing I told that midwife. You're not gonna touch my baby's head, right? She's like, yeah, don't worry. It's okay. And you're not going to do this and that. But that, I was already in chiropractic school. Once you're there, right, everybody's natural there. So it's a whole new world. Yeah. So that was the second time, which I couldn't get in the water because when my water broke, it has meconium. So they didn't allow me to get in the water. And then 3 and 4 was a home birth, because now I'm a doctor, I'm a chiropractor, prenatal chiropractor. I tell people you gotta have a home birth. So in my head, I was like, how am I gonna tell people have a home birth and I haven't had a home birth? And then the fear, because there was some fear tactics also, because right, what happens if something goes wrong? The hospital is not nearby. Am I crazy by doing this? So all of those stuff, I said to myself, no. I'm a doctor. I know that what the body can create, how the body birth, and it's something natural. So I'm gonna do it. And then I found a midwife that aligned with my wishes too, because the same thing. Are you gonna force me to do ultrasounds or this test or the other test, all that stuff? So she was like, no, cool, whatever I'm okay with that. And I was like, okay, perfect. And in home birth, you don't have any choice, right? You're going through the pain and you're going for it. Yeah. And when I had my second one, the pain wasn't that hard as the first one, because I could see the difference in between having a Pitocin and not having Pitocin. Yeah. The intensity of the pain, with Pitocin, you feel all your body is breaking into pieces, so a sharp bad pain, and there's no rest. You keep another contraction, in another contraction, in another, I would hold to that bed oh my God, please God, just, take this baby out. Because again, I don't want the C-section, but man, this is so hard. It was so painful.
One more reason it's amazing that you didn't end up with getting an epidural, because with that Pitocin.
Yeah.
You can see why so many women, that is the progression.
Oh my God.
As you get the Pitocin, it speeds things up, and boom, all of a sudden they're coming harder, crashing, more vigorous than maybe they would have naturally.
Yeah, and that Pitocin is okay, we're gonna start you on a 2, and then they keep 3, 4, 20.
And it's just interesting, I feel hearing that, where we can talk more about the cascade of intervention, but just hearing how much your body might rest between contractions when it's your body that's in control of it, but when you're getting the Pitocin, because your baby is such a part of your birth. So I just feel that's so interesting to hear, where I know in my birth experience where there were times that you felt you were trying to stay so present and it was so hard, but then you got that reprieve where you could almost fall asleep for that minute, but it wasn't always super consistent, and you just feel how that would seemingly have an impact on your baby versus
pain the whole time.
And not saying my body needs another 30 seconds to recover. Nope. You don't have that.
Naturally you get a contraction, you breathe through it, okay, now you can rest. And then 5-10 minutes, right? Another contractions. But Pitocin is go. now you're tired, now give me a epidural, now baby's not progressing, C-section.
Yes. And they have you in the most vulnerable situation. So
Yeah.
it's hard to not just be like, whatever, just
Yeah.
do whatever you gotta do.
On top of just surviving when you're so
Yes.
uncomfortable and sitting in a bed
Yeah.
in that much pain.
That too. I couldn't get out of the bed.
Yeah.
I even to go pee, they give me what is that bowl that they
The
use?
bedpan?
Yeah. And I had to pee on the bed. Like I couldn't move. So that's even worse, right? With my home birth, I was going outside my neighborhood, walking around, like getting in the shower.
Peeing in the toilet.
So much time on the toilet. It's so natural.
Yeah.
You're
Actually,
actually want to move to get it
eating
moving.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting to hear how much your why is, I don't want this. So you held on to like what you didn't want more.
It's a choice that I made very early.
Yeah.
Yeah, and stick to it. And that shows you how your mind is so powerful on creating and sticking with your choices.
And being exposed to other people or stories of someone who has done it a different way. If you've only ever been exposed to birth from people around you who have done it the medical route, or you've only seen it happen on movies or television, that's the only way you think it happens.
Yeah.
Like, why would you think that it would be any other way? So you have to hear, I think, outside of the realm, like, oh my gosh, there's another way.
There can be a more peaceful way.
Yes, if you were after it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, I feel like it was a blend between, like, I already had a severe distrust of the medical system because of what I'd experienced with my husband's Crohn's disease diagnosis and then watching him heal and the way we were handled after all of that. Two would be, I think it was just gaining knowledge. I was pouring into it, just wanting to hear more and more about how birth works, how labor works, why we feel what we feel in the moment, and then also hearing stories from other people around me who had done it a different way, like you and other friends, and then seeking that out on my own, like watching videos and being like, oh my gosh, this is a whole other world that I didn't realize existed. Hearing other stories about people who had done it a different way, although home birth at that point was like, I had never even considered it. But a midwife center was already a little bit like, ooh, get a
Very out of the box.
Yeah.
Now knowing what I know, you're like, oh, they're so intertwined.
What is intertwined?
The midwife center, specifically where we were, and the medical
With the hospital.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where you think it's...
They're very held accountable there. They're feeder to the fire. They are held to very specific parameters to be able to work together. And so they're always having that in the
Yeah,
back of
because
their mind.
so when you say like the midwife with the hospital, if there is a midwife with like tied up to a hospital, yeah, they kind of turn into the hospital.
So I feel like I want to first hear about a little more detail about why you chose the midwife center and what you were hoping for, because I know you almost had to have a double why, like you chose there and then switched care. So at the
Yes.
first point where you chose a midwife center,
Yes.
not knowing maybe how tied it was to a medical system at the
Right.
time,
I didn't know at all. So my first reason why I think was
hearing stories that it could be different.
stories that could be different. Oh, severe mistrust of the medical system. And then the third, I think, was through like this season of my life, I was getting a very deep set belief and trust in our creation while watching healing of my husband and other stories of healing. It like bled into my being like, well, if that's true for all these other things, like your body's meant to heal, then there's probably some element of this that applies to me carrying life and delivering it too. And I think that's probably the key for me, was that if you get like move everything else aside, is a deep-seated belief that we're meant to carry life and deliver it and bring it into this world. And if that's true, then every single thing that comes along with it is by design. And if you can work with it as opposed to against it, it's a whole different experience. So yes, it's painful and you might feel like you're tearing apart, but it's in this almost like deeply beautiful, so close to death emerges this like new life on the outside and within yourself as a mom. That when you can look at it that way, as opposed to just, oh, I'm gonna have a baby and I have to look up daycares and get a bassinet and like all like these other outskirting
Noises.
things that don't matter. It's just noisy. When you come down to like the crux of it is like God made us to carry life and then bring it into the world. And if you can lean into that, it's like it just shifts everything about the experience. So I think the shift from thinking I was going to give birth in a midwife center, which I felt was very like, holistic and woohoo. I didn't know anything else. I'd only ever heard of people having hospital births at that point.
Yeah.
And I feel like when you hear those stories, you do tend to hear positive, natural stories.
Yes.
Right? Like the people that successfully get to deliver in a midwife center, a lot of times the stories that are coming out of there are like, I had the birth I wanted, and it was in this more serene space. Maybe I feel like the pictures I saw, you can say if it's correct, like a bed in there, like not like a hospital bed, a real bed. It looks like a room, and so maybe feels a little more
twinkle lights. You can get up and move. They let you eat. They let you eat. Yeah. Yes. So from that perspective, it felt like I've chosen the other alternative.
Yeah.
There's two. It's medical, or I'm going to go to the midwife center, and I'm choosing the midwife center. And I even remember in my world, people were like, I don't know about this. You know, this feels risky. You're going to have a birth at the midwife center. So making transition to the hospital was like a train hitting me. But I don't feel like I ever wavered, or maybe it's because I didn't quite realize how big of a war it was going to be walking in there trying to keep like my desires of my birth. Little things that you think are little were really big in there. Like I didn't want to have an IV, and I fought that, and I won the battle, but it was like really overblown there. Like, what if we need to give you an emergency right away?
Why did you get transferred?
Because of my blood issue. I had the antibodies built up so I'm a negative blood type. Baby was positive. At 28 weeks, we realized I have antibodies built in my body that were going to fight against this baby in my belly.
So you were switched at 28 weeks?
So I was switched at it was even like a couple weeks later.
I was going to say, I thought it was
really late. It was like 30 or 32 weeks at this point, once we got it all sorted out. So then I had to start needing.
Late enough in the game to really derail.
Really derail. Because I was so far in, like, I've decided all the things. I was cruising, I was feeling great. And then little bits of, you have to come in for non-stress tests every week and ultrasounds, things that I was trying to avoid. I was being told this is what you have to do. And we're going to induce you if you don't have this baby by 39 weeks. So my why in there, I feel like more so in there, I've turned into warrior. I am going to defeat this in some capacity. In the book Portal that I had brought last time by Yolanda Clark, she kind of says every birth you have mirrors where you are in your life at that point. And I feel like that delivery was a bit of a battle. I actually had contractions that were on top of each other, cascading. And I could hear the beeping. They made me stay monitored, even in the bathtub. It was amazing. They let me be in a bathtub. I was the only bathtub in the whole hospital. They don't let you deliver in there, but I was allowed to labor in there with a monitor, a fetal monitor. And I could hear them in the other room saying, look, she's having another one. She's having another one. And she's having another one. And so I could hear them, and I was feeling it. And it felt like the break that you talk about that I did have in my second delivery. I didn't have those in my first, and it felt like I was battling. And so, yeah, it was.
And that's without any
no epidural. And I told them I don't want to be
Pitocin.
No Pitocin. No, but that's for talking. Yeah. I'm like, is there a chance somebody slipped me Pitocin? I don't think so.
Here, drink this.
Just get right after I gave birth to give me Pitocin, even though I didn't want it. And the midwife, I feel like, was just she had to go along for the ride. They were really pushing it. She's like, I think you should just go along with what they're asking you to do.
Why Pitocin at the end?
So I wouldn't hemorrhage. And so I'm like, whatever, I'm holding the baby, thank God that you just vacuumed out of me because you gave me no choice. In the final, these moments of transition when baby is making their way out is that's when you feel it, right? I mean, your body is
literally tearing.
It is.
For some people.
Opening wide to allow life through. And you're so vulnerable there because you're just I don't know how much longer this is going to go on. Mm-hmm. And I trust this is good. And so I'm trying to lean into it. And at that very moment for them to say, it's not happening fast enough, on your back, we're plucking this baby out. Feels like everything in that most empowering moment of your life could just be it was just plucked away. And so then I think that led to second birth. Things are going to look a lot different next time because I'm not allowing myself to be in that position again. So that's a long answer to a short question.
No.
Why?
I think it's a very nuanced answer to find your why because there's different levels of why.
And it changes as you go. For you, it started with fear, but then you started learning more. And then it became ingrained. I better walk out authentically what I'm saying to other people. And it really transitioned for you. And I think same for me. So if I have another baby, who knows? I'm just on the roof and...
Definitely in the ocean, I think.
Yes. How about for you? Miss Nurse. I mean, from nurse in postpartum to I'm only having a home birth.
I don't want to be in the hospital.
I just feel like if you were in high school and people would have said most likely to, not in a billion years would someone have said Elizabeth Kimmel will be a home birth, right?
Probably not.
And here you are.
Yeah. It probably goes back to caring a lot what people think. Because I think I always planned a midwife center too, because I had this vision that, hey, you're not going to have the options and the outs to have pain management and shift your birth. So that to me felt like the right route, but you're still, quotes, in care in case of anything. I guess when I worked at the hospital, I thought I would have a baby there, but pretty soon after, I knew that I couldn't see myself there.
Pretty soon after leaving
after leaving that job and working more in health education.
Yep.
And not around birth, but I think it goes back to, I went to a lot of delivery, so I was around a lot of labor and delivery nurses, and I think just the way it was talked about if people chose anything outside of the norm. And the norm was maybe not induced, but definitely like, when are you getting an epidural? I think the epidural rate there is 99%, like really, really, really high. And so it was a high risk hospital, but I just know every once in a while a woman came in with a birth plan. Obviously not all nurses, but it was enough that it was kind of scoffed at. And I know the mentality was kind of like, the more set you are on your plan, the more likely you are for it to go wrong. And so throw your birth plan out the window instead of saying like, how can we honor and support these women? And it just was like missing the mark. And then on the other side of it, I just feel like if a woman's in an epidural, I feel like this, like I've heard stories where like, we ordered pizza, we watched a movie. It's just life is normal. And then maybe some, obviously maybe some discomfort or different things as you push, but it's a very, very different experience than a woman birthing without, intervention. Yes. And so I remember seeing one of those, and her husband was sleeping and she was actually pretty quiet, but just the difference of her, it was maybe her fifth baby, but like how she was managing it quiet. There were other times if somebody was making noise, I just feel like, you heard it. You were aware, and it was maybe not always like kind about how they sounded, just what they talked about. And that was in my head of like, I don't know what I'm going to sound like, and I don't want to be thinking about somebody saying something about how I sound, and I don't want to be embarrassed, and I want to be pressured. I didn't know where I stood on everything yet, but I knew if I wanted to have an unmedicated labor and somebody kept coming in and saying, do you want pain medicine? Do you want pain medicine? I didn't know how bad it would get. And it felt to me like, I think I had read if you offer something 7 times, it almost becomes impossible to say no. Wow. And there, it's protocol. You have to offer pain management and be assessing pain. And so I was just like, I don't know that I could withstand those offerings if the option is there. So I wanted to remove myself. So then the midwife center seemed like the right option. And at the time I had a baby, it was bought by that same establishment. So it just felt like, well, home birth. And so I think before we were even pregnant, my husband and I watched The Business of Being Born. I feel like that was another first introduction of just kind of like what we'll call the cascade of interventions of you step in here and this is kind of like the routine, and it is increasingally common, and I just didn't want that to be my story. The other side, I think it wasn't so much fear of a C-section. I definitely had that, but I feel like it was so off my radar because I actually at the time, I don't know that I knew anybody that had a C-section either. It felt like a low chance to me, which is maybe naive as well. But
good to have in your mind.
Yes, but I heard a lot of epidural stories that scared me as more than even giving in, of like knowing I wanted to do it a certain way, but I had a friend whose sister said it worked on half of her body. And I was like, that sounds so much worse to me than just like feel like pain is hard, but on half of your body, I didn't even want to think about trying to navigate that. And then stories of like it not working and you getting 2, and I think you get an epidural and think you're not going to feel pain. And I know that's not everyone's story. And so it just felt like that feels a lot of variables. The more I read about it, it's like the medicine in that does cross the placenta and goes to your baby. And that to me just felt like it's not something I want. It's not how I want to start our journey. So I think it was mine was like fear and like a definitely want to avoid an epidural. And so.
What a wise, like, I feel like there's a lot of wisdom ingrained in a lot of the reasons why you made the decisions you made. And so well done. And especially because you got to see the meat being made. See how people were responding.
Yeah.
I was the person in the bathtub, the one bathtub in the hospital, naked,
like that chick.
Like they were probably like,
well, then
go check out 3B.
You get a nursing report. Or when I was on the postpartum floor, they come to you and you hear the like stuff about the birth and like what baby was it, and it's very rare one that they didn't have an epidural, but things come and report about who they are, or just more like they're opting out of something and that was not celebrated. It was more like, oh, I roll that. Yeah, this person, because that was just maybe in a sense more work. Yeah. But again, I was very young, so I had so much to learn, and it was more operated by like, here's protocol, here's what you do for every patient, here's when you do it, and you follow that order instead of saying like, why is she doing things differently? Then I think the other side is just like some women, I feel like I admire you. I did hear Caroline's story. Like I knew her story of being transferred to a hospital and then having to battle the IV and the drugs and getting a baby vacuumed out in the end with fear as the motivator, and then Pitocin, like all the things that's like, she did it. I don't want to speak for you. I feel like there's pride there, but there's also mourning of like, I held on to the why of not doing it a certain way, but so much was taken from me, and that's a lot to process. And I think there's so many women that have a really hard birth story. Hearing your journey and the battle of just not wanting an IV, I was just like, I am not cut out to battle in general in my best situation. That makes me shut down. Well, you absolutely. So you put in pain, caring about your baby as the motivator of will I, won't I? Well, your baby's at risk. Like, of course you're gonna help your baby. So I was like, I can't have that in my head. I will not win. Like I maybe can win these battles, but I just knowing like what stress is kind of the enemy in your birth, and adrenaline and the stress I feel in confrontation. And if people are bombarded, like I had friends that's like they opted out of something and they had 4 lines of people coming in saying, hey, and we're going to talk to you again. And I'm like, I don't want to have to defend every choice I feel very sure of to a bunch of people that are going to be kind of shaming me, talking down to me. I want as far away from that as I can. So that for me, some of it was like a covering of like, I don't want the opposition. And
that is the answer. I mean, you have, the reality is a lot of people want it a certain way, and that is the hospital way. That's great. It is set up for them. But there are a lot of people, I think, that want it a different way and don't realize the machine you're being fed to a little bit when you go in, and like you're up against a lot. And you made the wisest decision, which was like, I can't stay strong in that scenario. I'm going to opt out. It makes so much sense, and I wish I would have done that the first time around.
Things live in my head a lot, and I ruminate. And I knew when I decided this, people would have a lot of opinions. And this is also 2020, so that also factored into really not wanting to step into a hospital and deal with masking, birthing, limited people at your birth, which I didn't want a lot of people, but it's not the people you want, it's a lot of other people that you don't know. I did not tell many people my plan. It was very few, and if people asked me, I tried to keep it very vague, because if you're maybe not informed or sure, you're going to get a lot of fear put over you, or a lot of people questioning your decision. And that happened. Like I had people like, oh, are you sure you know what you're doing? Or I'm really worried about you. I would say I spent so much of my pregnancy prepping. It was just like, I'm so sure, like, yes, there is fear. I think like we've all said it, like something can go wrong. We're birthing a child. I'm not naive to think like there's no risk here, but there's risk the other way too. And so I think we're all choosing our risk and the experience we're like, okay, being with on the other side, which both routes, any route, or 3, there's a lot of routes to having a baby. There's tragedy at the end of any one of those routes for people, which is, awful and sad. But I think you need to sit in that knowing there's risk either way.
Yes.
But it's also okay to guard your plan, and you don't have to tell everyone.
Yes, so smart.
If you were talking to somebody that said, I think I really want a natural labor, what would you leave them with?
Why are you after that, and kind of get some more information from them. And I'm always open to sharing when people say something like that to me. Like, I'm just going to see how it goes. I'm going to try my best with, like, even though I was staunch in some things, how things were still pulled out from under me. And the business of being born is probably one of the best resources you can give to someone to watch, because it really unfolds all of the ways that the cascade happens to someone. And you can't force someone to say you need to have a home birth, but it is a conclusion that a lot of people will come to. I think once they've decided, I don't need any of those things that they're offering, and I do trust my body, that's probably a lot of times the conclusion that they will come to. What do you say?
I think you're absolutely right. It's like, why for every decision. You almost like need to create a birth plan, but you have to know your why for like kind of every step of a decision you want or don't want. Because if you don't, you're either going to default to like, oh, they're the experts, like I'm going to go with them, or you're going to be like, I don't want something bad to happen. It's like fear or deferral. So I think it's educating, and you have God created pregnancy for a long time. Be equipped and it will serve you.
For me, I see a lot of pregnant patients, and I ask them, what is your ideal birth? What are you seeing for yourself? I also believe that not everybody can do home birth, because the first thing I said, if you're stressing about it already, then we already know that, that wouldn't be like the best ideal. But if you're like, no, I would like to have a home birth, then get the education. Prepare yourself mentally, spiritually, physically to have like the best outcome. Mm-hmm. So I think it comes down to that, to like the education, the preparing side, and your wish. It's not that you're right or wrong, right? But if you want a home birth, you can definitely have a home birth. I always say, look, I have 2 hospital and 2 home, and if I could go back, I would have had them all at home because of, right, like the peace that I felt, how everything was so like natural, loving, Some people don't like others in the birth. I loved everybody to be part of it. For me, it is like, right, like that miracle, because it's 2 cells that get together there's a baby now. So like, why not, in my opinion, why not share it with others that can, like for my kids, I wanted them to see, this is possible, it is natural. We're okay doing this, in my hopes of them having home births in the future. There's a little bit of my why in that too, because I come from such a medical family that I wanted to show them, look, you don't have to be all medical all the time. My mom almost passed out my last kid. She was so nervous of something going wrong, or she'd never seen a home birth. Wow. So like she had to go in and out a couple times because she was like, I didn't want to make you nervous, and I needed to go out to take a breath. So that part of, look, we can all do it. It can be a beautiful experience. Mm-hmm. And then towards my 4th, I had like more a spiritual awakening. So it's like, wow, like to think that something spiritual, something, right, a soul is gonna mix with the physical, and we're gonna have a baby, like, oh, that's like, oh, I get goosebumps. That's something that I feel in the medical world, or epidural, it's like taking off us out of, like that separation of, no, this is physical, and this is nothing to do with the spiritual world, with God, with creation.
It totally cuts the miracle out of it.
Yes, yeah.
Not totally cuts it out. But you can see, and when you're exposed to that all day, every day, you can see why nurses are like, oh, it's going to take longer. Yes. I'm going to be longer here on my shift. It really takes what should be for you and who you choose to be there, and keep it sacred. Yes. And it gets exposed to all sorts of thoughts and opinions and feelings and shifts.
And a job and
vacations that doctors are looking for. And
convenience.
Convenience, yes. And it is not convenient.
Yeah.
That's in Ina May's book, A Guide to Childbirth. Yeah. She talks about how birth is sensationalized almost everywhere in TV, books. Like, you don't really hear often beautiful birth stories, but she's like, honestly, it's boring. That's wrong, but a lot of times it is long. There's only action for part of it and more towards the end. So it is a big waiting game, and the hospitals aren't the...
Well, if you're waiting too much, you're not making money. So
they need that
to in that 7-minute range.
Yes. So they squeeze that together. And like, I remember being a nursing student, and you on the OB floor, and you got to be assigned to a woman, and everybody wanted to see a birth. And so you would go in and maybe think like, the woman at 7 centimeters, I'm definitely in my 12-hour shift going to see a baby be born. And sometimes you didn't. Or some people at like, they got a 2-centimeter mom and she went fast and they saw a birth. But it's just interesting when you would wait your whole shift and be like, my patient didn't have her baby. And it was such a letdown. I don't know if that drove anyone trying to rush it, but it was the first time you saw like, what the heck?
Yeah, where's this
We're like, like luck of the draw to get to see a birth. And then you're like, also, students. You don't me at your birth? No, nothing. And this first birth I ever saw, you're just like standing at this bed, like, so I think that's a big thing, is normalizing it for yourself, because you don't see it. And so we're really fortunate to live in a time where if you don't have people around you, it's online. It's on Instagram and YouTube, and it's like, go watch those videos.
Yeah.
Because the more you can see that it's normal, it's just not common.
Yes.
It does help desensitize you. I don't know that my mouth was open watching it. I was a student, so it might have been the first baby I ever saw be born outside of like health class, and you're just standing there like, whoa, but like kind of disgusted and kind of blown away the miracle, because you're just like, what is it? Just, I hate to say the word disgusting at all,
but for a 22-year-old, yes,
you're on the line between gross and miracle.
You have no connection to that person or what they're doing, so.
Or their baby, but then you also, just like you said, of like, but a baby is here now, and it just came out of them, and you kind of cannot wrap your mind around it when you see it.
Yeah.
But so many women walk into having their own baby and never saw it.
From a practitioner standpoint, whenever I would see clients, oftentimes what I would feel like was at the root of what they had going on was a deep belief that they had something wrong with them, and now they were looking for a title to put to it. And I think a lot of times in our labor and delivery, we do the same thing, is we think we have this deep-seated self-devaluation. I'm not good enough, I'm not strong enough, I can't do this, I'm not lovable. There might be all sorts of these deep growing seeds, and giving birth is just another way for you to get to put words to that, like, I couldn't. Baby was too small. I wasn't strong enough.
It supports that belief.
Something was wrong. I had to, thank God we were at the hospital. It only supports what you're looking for, which is that deep belief. And so you really have to do a lot of like soul shifting more than anything, I think, if you want to go this route, is like, what do you really believe? Otherwise, it's real easy to shake you on your foundation. And if you really believe that something's wrong with you and that birth is scary and is like, for your mom, like that's all she had experienced probably. It was like very concerning for her, and we were made to do this. Yeah. So being able to get over that hump, I think, is really important.
She also was C-section in hospital. So
that's her experience, And so you're like, on one hand, great, that's awesome, but on the other hand, is like you missed out on the whole thing. Yeah. The culmination of the lead up to the portal that brings you into new life. Yeah. And I just think as women, we are meant to be empowered with this, and I think everybody would walk around differently. Like, I don't know about you, but like I walk differently since having children. Yeah. Specifically, like if I feel like, oh, that feels hard or that hurt, I'm like,
were they?
I guess you're not stepped on, like, and I go and cut with my foot, and I don't even think I made a sound, and Julian's like, doesn't that hurt? I'm like,
pain. I kind of feel that way with patients, that I'm like, I have 4 births in my pocket, all vaginal, not medicated, blah, blah, blah. And when I hear them going into, well, I'm open to this, but if I have to have a C-section or I have to have an epidural, I was like, right there is like, oh, you're done.
I know, that's so sad.
And I would say so much like, no, don't give in with those things. If you want this, if you're choosing this, stick with it. Yes. Prepare yourself, like you can do it. I did it. Like,
we're not special. Like, I feel like some people think like I could never do that.
Yeah.
And it's like you could if you wanted to. And that's, who we're talking to. If you want this, like you can have it. Yes. You need to believe that for yourself. Absolutely you can.
Make it your only option.
We're not more deserving or capable than you are.
Yeah. We're special as women.
Yes.
To be able to do
this. Yes, God created us in this way. I remember the first birth, the mental piece of trying to stay in the moment. I know you don't get a medal, and I feel like I saw the women who had gone before me that did this, and I'm like, I want to stand there with them. Like, I'm going to do this, even when it felt like I can't. Yeah. And like, I can and I am. And I saw them like on a podium with medals, like, and I was like, I will be up there. I'm coming. And then you're like, am I coming? Yes. I have a choice not to, but
that's great.
Yes.
That coaching you're doing to yourself into no.
Yeah. So I think that visual, and to me that mattered. Some people don't care, and that's great. But I was like, that's a place I want to be in my life and have that.
Absolutely, because the other part of where your mind would have been in that time was, I can't do this anymore. I don't think I can keep going. Am I going to have to go to the hospital and like spiraling that way? Yeah. Instead, you were running toward the podium.
But I'm also excited hearing your guys' stories, because those played into why I wanted to be there. Like hearing, I can do it. You did it. You did it. And you did it. I mean, people think, oh, you had a home birth first. Like, I might want to do that someday, but I want to have my baby first. I want to go into a hospital. And I feel like it's crazy hearing you guys say, like, I wish I would have done that first.
Yes.
But I think especially your story of being in a hospital and you don't want to be in there and all the battle. I'm like, that is way harder. You didn't get an epidural with Pitocin. You're like, guys, I kind of took the easy way out. I didn't have stress. I didn't have to battle people on every decision. When people say they can't do it, I'm just like, I had it a lot easier than a lot of women's stories.
Designed. Like, you did it as designed, and that's why it feels like it was less stressful, because we weren't meant to be like bombarded with wires and people and thoughts and beeps and timing and you gotta get things going and snipping
and meeting people. I want to meet somebody. No.
Getting pushed on.
Yeah.
I congratulate every time I have a first time mom that they're having at home where it's like, wow, you're so brave. Like, this is awesome.
It is brave, but just I feel like what you guys walked into is a different level of they're just different braves. But that helped guide me of like, you did it there. And that empowered me to say, like, I can do it here.
It can be done, and I don't want to go against all of those things.
Yes.
But if you ultimately have to go to the hospital, you know that you still have a choice.
Absolutely.
You still are, your rights is either you, your husband, or your doula to make sure they follow.
The information provided in this podcast is not medical advice. It is anecdotal and for general knowledge and informational purposes only. It is not intended to substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of a qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have.